Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden, and this feisty little guy next to me, this is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today, we have a show that I both am excited and I am regretting already, because we're going to talk about some senators smoking the ATF. We're going to talk about some lawfare that got destroyed, a follow-up from yesterday's story. And in the last segment, we're going to talk about getting Glock blocked, because Tim was on the internet again, and you guys are going to love every second of this. I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And with that, Tim, how was that for an intro? Man, you talk about just teasing it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, well, if there was ever a video that might get us demonetized, this may be the one. We'll see how this plays out.
This might be it. Hang in there, people. We got some adventure to go through because, like I said, Tim was on the internet again. Yeah. All right, but before we get to that, let's stay in the safe zone, Tim. Let's the nice cozy news area. Some breakdown of some stuff. Some senators got very feisty, Tim. You wouldn't believe that the ATF was doing shenanigans, would you?
Oh no, they're straight shooters.
They wouldn't. Yeah, they wouldn't. They are. Yeah. Well, this story. It's a really long story. I'm gonna make a lot of jokes about long, and at the end, you guys will understand. This is a very long lead into a story.
It's a hard story to cover. Yeah.
It's a hard one. So, God Almighty, the story of this here is all the way back to 2018, Tim. This is a long history story here. So, if you guys will recall, and you may remember this, do you remember the story? Where ATF was padding the titles and the classifications of jobs to boost pay of their employees. Do you remember that story?
I think I missed that one, but it sounds like a good story. Okay.
It sounds like a good one, doesn't it? All right, check this out, because now we've got more development. So as you can see here, this is number one. This is the actual press release from the two senators from Iowa, Grassley and Ernst. Okay. They demand corrective action for the ATF's illegal scheme to misclassify law enforcement and fleece taxpayers. Okay, let me walk you through this, because there's a lot of things here that are very, very fascinating, and I would never expect this from a government bureaucracy, Tim. I just wouldn't see it. I wouldn't see it coming. You just don't see these things. So Iowa Senators Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst are calling for accountability and a full review of the ATF's unlawful misclassifications of administrative positions as law enforcement. Not only was this decades-long practice illegal, but it also burned millions of taxpayer dollars. So, Tim, what they were doing was they were taking people like HR or administrative roles or answering the phones, and they would classify them as law enforcement. So they would get boosts to their salaries, right? Yeah. At the behest, obviously, of the taxpayers. Well, in 2018, a whistleblower came out, and this is number 4. And this whole thing is really, really, they gave us the shaft, to be honest. But anyway, so the ATF recently regained the authority to classify positions as law enforcement after a 2020 suspension due to its unlawful human resources practices. In light of the ATF's restored authority, this is where it comes into fruition now, Grassley and Ernst today made internal ATF records public and urged the ATF and Department of Justice to hold accountable the ATF managers who permitted the classifications. Isn't that interesting? There was no accountability for the people who padded salaries. This is fraud, is what this is, Tim.
Yeah. You know, I've seen in corporate America the padding of titles, not necessarily paychecks. So, you know, like we had a lady at our office that would greet people coming in for meetings and stuff like that. And they gave her the title of Director of First Impressions.
Oh, First Impressions title. I knew you were going to say that. Yep.
And we all laughed about that. I mean, wonderful, beautiful lady. And none of us would ever joke about it in her presence, but it was just typical of the culture, right? And it's like,
but you would behind her back.
Yeah. Everybody's a director, you know? It was anyway. So apparently they did not only that, but they also then bumped pay as well, which, that's when you're dealing with public funds, that becomes, I would imagine, a crime. And they did mention illegal.
Mm-hmm. You would think, yeah. So here's the thing that kind of irks me about this. There's really 2 or 3 different things, and I've got a few more little pieces here. But the number one thing that irks me, it's fraud, and it's defrauding the dollars of the United States taxpayer. I really don't like that. But that, honestly, that happens so much. I'm kind of becoming numb to it. It's kind of like it's a foregone conclusion, right. Which I don't endorse it and I don't accept it, but I am not surprised as much anymore. That's one. But the second thing is, if you are inflating titles of people who are not risking their lives, who are not out there in the field, like police officers, for example, or SWAT members, or whatever position, insert position here, you're basically saying that the advantages and benefits that you're getting for the additional risk is now being watered down because people in the home office get it too.
Right.
I don't like that.
No,
I don't. I really
but
don't.
I don't like government
honestly.
Bureaucracies. And
well, I don't either.
That act independently and create law out of thin air. I just have a problem with the whole thing. So
it's funny you mentioned that, Tim, because these two senators said that here in a second. Again, this letter was yesterday. Oh yeah,
interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't read any of this. So, yeah.
I know. That's the fun part. I get to bring you along in the story. It's a storytelling adventure. So wrapping up on number 4, this is the last piece of this. Further, the senators raised concerns of alleged agency retaliation against the whistleblowers who brought ATF's wrongdoing to light. Lastly, in response to whistleblower disclosures claiming hundreds of additional ATF employees may have also been misclassified and millions more of taxpayer dollars misspent, the senators requested an expanded evaluation of the ATF's classification procedures. So the thing about this is, 2008, they got their hand caught in the cookie jar. 2020, as a result of the cookie jar incident, they could no longer classify their own people, but now they can again. Apparently 4 years was the penalty box where they couldn't go through and say, you have this classification. So now they can do it again.
And they're right back to their old tricks. Is that where this is going?
Well, that's what the letter's alluding to. They're saying potentially, not only do you guys now have this power back, you also retaliated against the whistleblowers who were doing the right thing. And also potentially, there's hundreds of more that weren't caught up in the first time.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes it brings a tear to the eye, doesn't it?
ATF and retaliation. Say it ain't so.
They would never.
They would never do that.
They would never. By the way, Doctor, we're going to probably need a sarcasm meter on that one, just for everybody to make sure.
Just so people know, the ATF has stood accused of such things, being very vengeful and being the one bureaucracy you did not want to cross. If you thought the IRS could mess your life up, the ATF. The rumors are that they can be extremely vindictive, and so.
Well, and this brings up an interesting point, Tim. And I've got one more little clip I'm going to bring here in a second. But it brings up an interesting point, and it's such a juxtaposition. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. For an agency, I mean, this is a full-on bureaucratic agency. This is underneath the DOJ, and the DOJ is underneath the executive branch, and the president directs the DOJ, and ATF can be used as a bulldog. I mean, we've seen that a few different times, a political bulldog, right?
Oh, yeah.
So we've seen a significant number of scandals over the past few years with the ATF from a standpoint of either Fast and Furious, or you've got Project Thor, which they defunded, or all the different interpretations they made up out of nowhere to infringe upon the rights of Americans across the board and basically make up laws whole cloth and potentially put people in prison for 10 years and a $250,000 fine.
Well, we can go back in time. I mean, to the time before many people watching this may not have even been born and certainly weren't involved in politics. Ruby Ridge and Waco. They have a long history.
They don't like that one. They don't like that one.
No.
Yeah, they don't. It's not a good one.
But every year they celebrate it. Yeah, for some reason.
No, stop.
They do.
Listen, the end segment is already going to be hard enough for me to justify. I can't keep going.
Well, follow us on Twitter. On the anniversary of it, you'll see them posting and me reposting it.
Oh, Tim is so on that every year. That's very true. But what I do like to see. Oh, let me finish that thought. Sorry. On all those negative things, right? At the top of the organization now, you have this doofy, aloof. I mean,
Diddlebum.
I don't know a proper description because he's such a goofy individual. I mean, like,
that knows nothing about firearms.
Right. I'm not trying to make him a personal attack on him. I'm just saying, objectively, he doesn't inspire confidence. He doesn't inspire knowledge. He doesn't inspire expertise. He doesn't know any of these things. And in front of Congress, he said he doesn't know anything about these things. And he's directing the agency and organization that is such a troubled history around a Second Amendment. It is mind-boggling to me. It is truly an interesting animal. Is that a nice way to say that?
Yes. It's painful.
Good.
Yes.
It is painful. Well, apparently, Senator Grassley and Ernst also know, because this is number 5. In a separate effort to correct harmful ATF practices, Grassley and Ernst grilled the agency for inappropriately targeting federal firearm license holders and stifling Second Amendment rights by abusing its federal regulatory powers. No,
No.
they would.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, they openly targeted
Man.
FFLs the last 3 years, you know,
badly.
And they boasted about the thousands of licenses they revoked for what was previously like you got a dirty letter in the mail saying you better fix this for your next audit. Those types of infractions, literally administrative type infractions, you know, paperwork infractions.
Yeah, like spelling errors, spelling errors on forms.
Things that would get you a warning in the past now result in revocation of licenses. And they're trying to do this because of the 1968 gun control bill. Well, the federal government gets to regulate FFLs. And through that, they can say, well, you know what? We're just going to take all the FFLs, going to leave so few behind that you can't exercise your rights because you're going to have to drive 2 or 3 hours to find an FFL.
Well,
it's kind of weird.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar, Tim. That's almost like the way that the Democrats on the left price people out of their rights. It's almost like the executive bureaucracies are putting distance out of your rights. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, making it painful. We've had this conversation many times, including yesterday. It's making it painful and troublesome for you to exercise your rights. And when the federal government holds the keys to the kingdom in that they can control who does and does not have a federal firearms license, if they revoke half or 2/3 of those licenses, guess what, folks? It's going to be increasingly harder for you to exercise your rights to buy a firearm.
That's true. And then you know what the next one would be? You know what the next point would be? The next step would be, we have a centralized problem. We have only like 10 gun sellers in the entire United States sell all the guns. We have a Walmart type situation in the guns in this world, and we need regulation. You know, that's the next step.
And they'll pick off those 10 one by one by suing them into oblivion because they dared to sell a firearm. Yeah.
You know what it's kind of like? It's kind of like when dolphins herd all the herring into a big ball near the surface. It's kind of like that. How was that for an example? I thought that was pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good way to wrap that segment. A little tap on my own shoulder there. That was pretty decent. Well, you know what? We started that one off, Tim, and that was a little sad. It was a little not great. ATF does hurt my feels. It hits me real deep. I can't wait till the end. So now this next one,
it's all going to become clear. Yeah.
Oh, everything is going to come together, guys. You guys are going to get the full story. So now let's talk about something happy, Tim. I find this amazing on the timing of what we covered last night. You remember that story? This was probably like 18 hours ago. So a lot's happened since then. Remember when we talked about the Kentucky gun shop that was being sold for selling the AR-15? Remember that?
Yep.
Well, their whole point was this was Lawfare from Everytown for Gun Safety, basically attacking gun stores, right? Well, wouldn't you know it, that like 12 hours after we put that video up, we get this little nougat. This is number 7. Listen to what's happening in New Hampshire, Tim. New Hampshire Supreme Court sides with gun store in lawsuit filed by Manchester police officers. Isn't that interesting how that exact same story, only different parts of the country and further on down the road, because it happened earlier with New Hampshire, but basically said, no, that's unconstitutional. You can't do that.
That's pretty interesting.
Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
Let me show you some more details here, because this, I think, is very interesting. The words that they used were important. So this is number 8. The New Hampshire Supreme Court has sided with a dairy gun shop and the Department of Safety in a lawsuit brought by 2 Manchester police officers who were shot in the line of duty in 2016. Manchester police officers Ryan Hardy and Matthew O'Connor were injured in 2016 when they were shot by a guy who was a suspect in a gas station robbery. Now, tell me if this sounds familiar, Tim. This is 9. The officers sued the gun shop that sold McPherson the gun and the Department of Safety, which oversees the background check process, arguing that McPherson should not have been able to buy the gun because of prior mental health issues. Does that sound really familiar?
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Look, this is a tactic by the left. They use the courts to basically deny you your rights. And that's what's happening in Kentucky. This is what clearly was happening in New Hampshire, which is why their Supreme Court acted appropriately and stopped the whole mess. And I would hope that the Kentucky courts would do the same. But
I expect so.
You cannot hold the retailers and the manufacturers responsible for the actions of criminals. You just can't. And as we talked about in yesterday's video, when we were talking about the Kentucky story, if you extrapolate that out past firearms, because it will go past firearms when this becomes precedent and the courts just allow this type of nonsense, now you can sue dealers in cars because somebody had an accident and killed somebody else. You can sue alcohol retailers and manufacturers because of drunk drivers. You can just sue everybody because it's not. This is the whole problem of our society where you're not really responsible for your actions. Somebody else is.
Correct.
You're okay. Here's your participation award. It's going to be fine. We'll just hold this person accountable for your stupidity. It's mind numbing that we even have to have these conversations, that adults are doing this, but these are adults that are politically motivated. And when you throw politics in the mix, you get a lot of stupidity out the other side.
Oh, you get some very stupid. Hey, can I jump totally off into another realm real quick? Total rabbit. You know what I saw today on Twitter? This is news. It's clearly something we should have known. Oh, yes, it's exciting. I heard today that Republicans, they are bad people. And the reason they are bad people is because they want to keep the border open and they want more fentanyl across the border and they don't care about illegal immigration. And Biden has just been trying to do something, but those Republicans are just stopping him. Bro, I ran into my bathroom and I told my wife, I was like, I might not make it through the day. Today might be the day.
This is a tactic of the left. They accuse you of literally what they're doing.
It's insane.
With no evidence.
It's so crazy.
And
no
half the population go, yeah, those evil Republicans.
They want the border open.
Shutting down the border. Literally, they're shutting the border down, and the Democrats are suing them to make them stop doing it. But yet it's the Republicans really secretly doing it.
Oh my God. I know, and then they spent 4 years lambasting Trump as every name under the sun because he wanted to close the border. Now it's a political issue bad for Biden, and all of a sudden the Republicans want to keep the border. I'm like,
Biden is secretly a xenophobe, right? Biden secretly hates immigrants, but it's the Republicans.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. Right. That was a rabbit. I just wanted to share that with you. But let's get back. Let's get back to New Hampshire. I'm sorry. Beautiful people, the second legacy. I know you will forgive me. It will all become clear at the end of this episode. All right. So this is interesting here. Quote, this is a great argument. As long as the sale was legal, a gun dealer cannot be held liable for something someone else chooses to do, the attorney representing the gun shop said. Well, that makes pretty good sense, doesn't it?
There's an adult in the room.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
And then another random occurrence of adulting, this is number 10. The gun shop in the state argued that no state or federal disqualifiers came up during the background check. The Supreme Court agreed with the lower court's ruling in the case and further ruled there is no liability for either party. Now, and that's the thing. These are all civil cases. Yeah. The left is looking to break these gun stores because if they break a gun store, that's a battle they can notch on their belt.
Right.
Hey, that's one less person that can sell guns. Therefore, it's a safer community. Therefore, no guns. Woo!
Right.
And that's the point. There is no liability. Like, how do you get past, Tim, the idea that, well, there are NICS background checks, and the FBI does those background checks, and there's history of the FBI doing those background checks. So therefore, I'm going to sue the gun dealer.
Right.
What?
A background check system that neither the gun dealer nor even the state has any control of. It's all done federally.
And in some states, there's states and federal.
Yeah, there are state background checks as well, yes.
And that's what happens in New Hampshire. But at what point, like this judge, it says it very, very clearly, you can't hold them liable. There was nothing on the background check that stopped it. So why would you sue these gun shops if you were not trying to make a political statement? That's my point. It doesn't make any sense unless you want a political outcome.
Right. Well, sue the doctor. The doctor didn't report the mental illness to the state board or whatever. Just sue everybody.
Yeah, let's just sue everybody.
I'm sure the doctor has a pet. Sue the pet. I'm sure the pet was talking to him when he was asleep or something. Let's just sue everybody.
Dr. Doolittle, you're right. Well, so listen to this. This I think is absolutely fascinating. This is number 11. The court found that a state statute protects gun dealers and manufacturers from liability and said McPherson was not disqualified from possessing a firearm at the time under federal law. Let's roll to number 12. Again, McPherson was the bad guy there. Attorneys for the officer said McPherson shouldn't have been able to buy the gun in part because of his history as a patient at several mental health facilities. But the court said those visits did not meet federal definitions that would bar someone from buying a gun. How is this the gun store's fault?
You have to be adjudicated as mentally defective.
Right.
There's a process involved in that.
Right. It doesn't make any sense on any level. And honest to God, dude, when you look at all of the stuff that we're seeing in these lawsuits, when you look at all the stuff that we're seeing in our nation, in our cities, in the shootings, when you look at all of it, I never thought I'd be in a position to say whatever happened to mental asylums, but I'm going to be honest, bro. Like, why did we get rid of those things?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we could go into a whole episode on that. I mean, there were times when they were extremely cruel to people.
No,
but I
of
think
course,
we moved past
that.
Yeah, I think that history is what ultimately was their undoing, no matter how much they cleaned them up and fixed them and actually tried to help people versus torturing people. But yeah, they're gone.
Oh, no, I agree. And by all means, I don't want you guys to think that I'm for the torture or lobotomies or straight jaw, anything like that. All I'm saying is we might want to have an institutionalized situation here because this might be a central issue. Anyway, Tim, this is the moment I have feared and both been excited for. Yeah. You get to take the wheel and just keep your hands on the wheel because this could get inappropriate, people. I'm going to be honest. The jokes are going to be great. Yeah, Let's commence the Glock blocking.
All right. Well, we have a couple of things here, so we'll start off a little more subtle, and then we'll move into the thing that I really want to talk about today.
Just the tiny bit, just a tiny bit, not the whole.
Tip. Okay. So, okay. So we'll start off with old Susan Burke here, number 13, Doc, and this is something that I want to address. Matter of fact, this entire segment is about something I want to address. Here we have Susan saying, if you're not planning something nefarious, why do you need more than 1 or 2 guns? So keep in mind, folks, how many times have you seen a news article where they said that they raided somebody's house and they found, 10 weapons and 10,000 rounds of ammunition? Oh my gosh, what was he planning? More than likely nothing. Arranged day. Just a gun collector. The gun collectors aren't your problem. The gangbangers and the criminals and the people that rob stores and all that stuff, they're the problem. And I can guarantee you they're not gun collectors, right? No. They're not, because they buy them illegally, where we would walk into a gun store and pay $50 for a Jimenez or something like cheap little handgun. They're paying $5,000 for it out of the trunk of a car. They're not collecting those. They're using them for their business, which is crime. So this whole notion that, well, boy, if you own more than 1 firearm or maybe 2, you are a risk to society. Yep. And every time I see these posts where people are like, oh my gosh, they took like 4 firearms out of his house and 200 rounds of ammunition. I'm like, that's a cute start. I got that much stuff in my Jeep. It's like,
about to say, and?
Yeah, and? But this is the mindset. But then again, the leftist mind virus does things like this and creates these lapses in logic. And we're really going to get into that with the next few. Do you have any comments about old Susan before we get into the more pressing issue?
I'm laughing just because I know what's coming. No, I think that's a very good assessment. Like there's a few pretty typical things that gun controllers will say. One, of course, is why do you need more than 1 unless you have some nefarious means? It's like, I don't know. Why do you have 2 iPhones? Like what's that about? Like, why do you have more than 1 day's worth of food in the fridge? I mean, like, what are you a hoarder? I mean, are you like do you eat too much food? I mean,
are you planning an insurrection?
Very stupid. Yeah. Right. Like, are you planning on not going outside for 24 hours? Yeah, I call that Halo launch in high school. Anyway, not a big deal. But it's so silly, the stuff they come up with, and now we're about to dive in. I mean, here we go.
So look, we've all dealt with this next one, folks, and it's just time to talk about it. So we had a guest on our show not long ago. He's an X/Twitter poster. You are a smartass, Carl. And we talked about, some of his experiences and why he became pro 2A and all that other stuff. But if you read his posts on X, a lot of times he's posting imagery of his gun collection, and he's doing that to trigger the anti-gunners, and it works. He gets some really great content out of triggering these anti-gunners. But one of the things I've noticed with his posts and with many others, I mean, I've had the same types of memes and comments made towards me and my support of the Second Amendment, but it seems like the anti-gunners have this fixation on male members' anatomy. Yes, we're talking about the reproductive organ, right?
Yeah.
They always say, well, you own a gun because you're inadequate in this other area. You have a micro dealy bopper. That's why you have a gun. And the more guns you have,
a subcompact.
Right. The more guns you have, the more compact your thing is. And so so every time he'd post, you'll see these memes, like compensating, like, I have this gun because I don't have anything down here and all this other stuff. And finally, he made this meme. If we can throw up number 14, Doc. And here Carl is saying, help a gun control advocate today. He has Kanye West holding up a notepad here, and he's edited it clearly. This is a meme, and it says, every 20 seconds, a gun control leftist thinks about beep. Assist a gun control advocate in dealing with ODD, obsessive disorder, and a condition prevalent among Chads and Karens exhibiting compulsive obsession around a gun and an owner's beep. So this is him striking back at the folks that endlessly post these memes at him saying that, Carl, the only reason you own a gun is because you don't have the ability to reproduce.
Because you have a Springfield XD. That's why. Because you have a Keltec P380. That's why.
With no grip zone. It's yeah. So anyway,
or an.
But folks,
I love that. Dude, I love that you bleeped out that part, but there's no amount of bleeps that are going to help us on this next one.
No. But okay, so the next one, in all fairness, this goes to my point. This is an ongoing thing. This is from 7 years ago. But the left and the anti-gunners have fascination with male anatomy. They truly do. And as evidence of this, we go 7 years back in time to an article posted to The Guardian. This is up on the website. They've never taken it down. To the YouTube moderators, what we're about to show our audience is us reporting on an actual news item. We didn't make this meme. It's not even a meme. It's just a screenshot of a news article. It's real. Yeah, this is real. This is on the website. You can Google it. You can find it. You can read the article for yourself. Number, what is that, 14? I got
15.
15? All right, yeah, number 15, Doc. Cocks, not Glocks. Texas students carry dildos on campus to protest gun law. And then look at this wonderful picture.
There's so much.
He's two-fisting that bad boy, and it's just like, once again, here we have students who are for gun control early on in their gun grabbing careers. They're not grabbing Glocks,
guns.
They're grabbing replica male organs. And proudly so. I mean, the guy couldn't be happier in this image. I mean, God bless him. He's so having jolly. A good time. Yeah, he is.
He's so jolly. Look at that. Look at that control, man. He's got the handle of magazine well. He's got one on the slide. He's ready to rock.
The chick on the left is like, oh yeah. I mean, she's got a weird look on her face, and the guy on the right's like just impervious to what's going on around him. Like, I don't see that massive thing over there. I'm just talking to the news reporter.
I'm on TV. What am I on TV with? I don't want to talk about that. Yeah, this image alone speaks so many words, bro. Even if, like, to your point, and this segment is a little tongue in cheek and it's a little risque. I'll be honest, it is. But
to say the least, that?
Yeah, yeah. So they actually put this up. Like, I mean, it's that they are weird about this stuff. Like, they consistently tie gun rights together with those
male anatomy
and male anatomy. Yeah. I mean, the other guy, we were concerned earlier about a subcompact, but now we're worried about like a, Barrett 50 cal.
But I mean, packing a rifle there, but yeah,
he's got a full bore. Exactly. Ugh. But I mean, like, they did this on campus and they were being serious. Mm-hmm. They were, I mean, like, hey, what rhymes with Glock? What can we make a big deal about a campus carry? Well, it's got to rhyme with Glock. I know.
Yeah, I'm sure they thought this was quite crafty.
Did it. Yeah. Oh, so clever. The wordplay.
This is 7 years ago. I can only imagine this guy holding this thing in this image in the center. I can only imagine whatever job he's gone to, this article keeps resurfacing. I mean, he looks so proud of that. I mean, he's just like
so proud.
Yeah.
He's like, luckily I have experience with Barrett 50 cals, right? But it's that you just hit something that I think was so important. And this is something to understand before you just go,
have a nice day.
Deep.
There he did it.
I got it. Whack. You have to understand when you're doing this kind of crap, this is going to pop up on research. This is gonna, like, any job you go for, any political office you hold, any wedding, any yearbook, you're gonna see this again. And a decision you make when you're 20 years old, thinking that you're making a difference as part of Cox for Glocks, or Cox not Glocks, sorry, Cox not Glocks. Like, these are not serious people.
No, they're not.
It's embarrassing. And this whole time it's been looking at me and I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had enough of this. So we're sorry to subject you guys to all this, but we thought it was important to show you the leftist mind virus in all of its glory. Thank you for watching Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.